In a dirty London warehouse in the winter of 1824, a small 12-year-old boy stood at a wooden table for 10 hours every day. His job was simple. He pasted paper labels onto bottles of black shoe polish. His name was Charles Dickens, and his father was in prison. That boy in that factory would grow up to become the most famous English writer in the world. He would invent characters known on every continent. He would even invent the Christmas we celebrate today. But before any of it, there was the boy, and the bottles, and the shame. This is his true story. Charles Dickens was born on the 7th of February 1812 in the small town of Portsmouth on the south coast of England. He was the second of 8 children. His father, John, was a kind and warm man, a clerk for the Navy who loved music, food, and good company. But John Dickens had one fatal weakness. He could not manage money. He spent more than he earned. Always. When Charles was 5, the family moved to Chatham in Kent. He had 3 happy years there. He read everything he could find: Robinson Crusoe, Don Quixote, the Arabian Nights. Books became his real friends. His older sister Fanny would later remember him as a quiet boy who walked everywhere with a book, lost in stories. He believed his happy childhood would last forever. It did not. In 1822, when Charles was 10, the family moved to London. The streets were crowded and dark. The new house was small. His father's debts grew larger every month. Then, on the 20th of February 1824, 2 constables came to the door of the Dickens home. John Dickens was arrested for owing £40 and 10 shillings to a baker. He was taken to the Marshalsea, a famous prison for people who could not pay their debts. In those days, the family of a debtor was allowed to live with him inside the prison walls. So Charles's mother, his younger brothers, his baby sister, all of them moved into a tiny room inside the Marshalsea. But not Charles. Charles was 12 years old. He was considered old enough to work, so he was sent away, alone, to a factory. The factory was called Warren's Blacking. It stood beside the Thames in a damp old building full of rats. It made black polish, the kind used to shine leather shoes and boots. Charles worked there 10 hours every day, 6 days a week, for 6 shillings a week. His job was to take each bottle, cover its cork with paper, and then paste a printed label around it. He did this 600 times a day. 600 bottles, then 600 more. The smell of glue and varnish was in his hair, on his clothes, in his food. At night, he walked back to a cheap rented attic where he lived alone. He had no friends. He ate bread and cheese, sometimes a piece of fruit. He saved every coin he could spare for his family. Other children passed the dirty factory window on their way to school. He hid his face when they did. He felt forgotten. He felt invisible. He never spoke about that time to anyone, not even his own wife, for the rest of his life. But at night, in his tiny attic, he wrote things down. Faces of the boys at the factory, voices of the people in the streets, a landlord, a drunken sailor, a poor girl selling matches. He did not yet know it, but he was already a writer. After 3 months, a small inheritance arrived from John Dickens's mother. It was just enough to pay the debt. The family was freed from the Marshalsea, but Charles's mother wanted him to keep working at the factory. The wages helped. His father, for once, said no. He took the boy out of Warren's blacking and sent him back to school. Charles never forgot it, and he never forgave his mother either. At 15, he became a clerk in a London law office. He hated the work. The lawyers were proud, the clients were sad. But he watched them. He listened. He remembered every face. In his free time, he taught himself shorthand, a fast system of writing used by journalists. It took him 18 months of practice. By his 19th birthday, he was the fastest shorthand writer in London. He found work in the courts, then in Parliament. He reported the speeches of the most powerful men in England. But Charles wanted more than just to write down the words of others. He wanted to write his own. In December 1833, he sent a small sketch to a London magazine. It was about everyday Londoners. He used a strange pen name, Boz. Boz was his little brother's nickname. The editor printed it, then printed another, then another. By 1836, Boz had a book deal. His first long story was called The Pickwick Papers. It was funny, kind, and full of life. London fell in love with it. Within a year, Pickwick was the most talked about book in the country. That same year, Charles married a young woman named Catherine Hogarth. He was 24. He had been working since he was 12. Then he wrote Oliver Twist, the story of a hungry orphan boy in a workhouse. Everyone praised the book for its imagination. But Charles knew where it came from. He had been Oliver. He had stood at that factory window. In the autumn of 1843, Charles was 31 years old. He had a wife, 4 children, and a problem. He owed money. His publisher had cut his royalties. He needed a quick book for Christmas. He walked the streets of London for weeks thinking. He thought about poor children he saw begging in the snow. He thought about his own father behind those prison walls. He thought about kindness and money and second chances. Then he wrote, in 6 weeks, a small book called A Christmas Carol. The book invented the modern Christmas, the Christmas tree, the big family dinner, the kind ghost who shows a rich man what truly matters. Today, almost 200 years later, his Christmas is the Christmas the whole English-speaking world still celebrates. For the rest of his life, Charles Dickens never stopped writing. 15 novels, thousands of letters, hundreds of speeches. He toured America twice and read his own stories to roaring crowds. He was the first true literary celebrity. He died on the 9th of June 1870 while still writing his final book. He was 58 years old. England buried him in Poets' Corner at Westminster Abbey. He gave the English language new words: boredom, Christmassy, the creeps. He gave us Scrooge and Oliver Twist and Pip and Miss Havisham. He gave us a Christmas we still celebrate. And it all began with a small 12-year-old boy, alone in a damp factory beside the Thames, pasting labels on bottles of shoe polish and refusing to be forgotten. If this story warmed your evening, subscribe to Lamplight English. Every Tuesday and Friday, a new chapter, told slowly, told clearly, told by lamplight. Until next time.